The most dangerous thing a man can do is let someone believe they've already figured him out. I didn't fight it. I didn't correct her. I let her believe it. My name is Daniel Hayes, and on a quiet Tuesday morning, my wife proved exactly how much she thought she knew about me. I was sitting at the kitchen table in our downtown apartment, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view people pretend not to take for granted. First cup of coffee, same shirt from the night before, half reading an article I couldn't even remember the title of. It was a normal morning, or at least, it looked like one. Lena was already dressed. Of course she was. She always was. Tailored blazer, heels that made a statement without asking permission, and that calm, polished expression she wore like armor, the kind that made people listen before she even spoke. CEO energy. She walked in, didn't sit down, didn't look at me for more than half a second, and then she placed a manila envelope on the table, right next to my coffee. Neat, precise, intentional. "Sign it," she said, scrolling through something on her phone. "You have nothing to lose." Just like that. No build-up, no explanation, just a conclusion she had already reached. I looked at the envelope. Her firm's legal letterhead, crisp edges, prepared in advance. This wasn't a thought. This was a decision. "A prenup?" I asked, even though I already knew. She finally glanced up, just briefly, just enough to confirm she was in control of the moment. "I should have done it earlier," she said, "but better late than never." 2 years of marriage, and suddenly, paperwork. I picked up the envelope, felt the weight of it. Not heavy, not really, but it carried something else. Assumption. "I'm not risking my future," she added. "Not on uncertainty." Uncertainty. That word stayed with me longer than anything else she said. She didn't wait for a response, didn't ask what I thought, didn't even pretend this was a conversation. "Take your time," she said. "My lawyers are available if you have questions." Then she grabbed her bag and walked out. No goodbye, no hesitation, just the sound of the door closing behind her. I sat there for a while, the city moving outside the windows like nothing had happened. Cars passing, people walking, a world completely indifferent to the moment that had just quietly shifted everything. I opened the envelope. 11 pages. Her signature already there. Tabs marking the important sections, notes in the margins. Efficient, clean. And somewhere around page 5, where my assets were described as limited and non-critical, something changed. Not anger, not even disappointment. Clarity. That's when I realized something I probably should have understood much earlier. She hadn't misunderstood me. She had studied me, measured me, and decided I wasn't worth the risk. And the worst part, she was right. About everything she thought she knew. She just didn't know what I had never shown her. But this didn't start with a prenup. It started 3 years earlier, on a night I thought I got lucky. February, a networking event I didn't want to attend. One of those polished glass and chrome venues where everyone's either building connections or pretending they don't need them. Soft jazz in the background, expensive drinks no one really tastes, and conversations that sound important without actually saying anything. I was standing near the back, not hiding, just not performing. Club soda in hand, watching people move through the room like they were all following the same invisible script. I had planned 45 minutes, maybe an hour if I got trapped in a conversation I couldn't politely exit. Then I'd go home. That was the plan, until she changed it. You're the only person here not trying to impress anyone." Her voice came from my left, calm, certain, I turned. Lena. Black dress, minimal, deliberate. Nothing about her was loud, but everything about her was intentional. The kind of presence that didn't demand attention, just assumed it. I could say the same about you, I replied. She smiled, not the practiced kind, something sharper. Difference is, she said, I know exactly what I'm doing. Most people would have moved on after that. She didn't. We talked for nearly 2 hours about business, about markets, about people, how they think, how they move, how predictable they are when you pay close enough attention. She told me she was a CEO, tech logistics, scaling fast, investors, expansion, pressure. I told her almost nothing. Consulting, I said when she asked what I did. Mostly quiet work. That was usually the point where conversations ended. People hear consulting and their interest fades just enough to excuse themselves politely. Lena didn't move. She studied me instead. That should have been my first warning. Most people walked away when I gave them nothing to work with. She leaned in. Looking back now, I understand why. Here's what she thought she saw that night. A man who kept things simple. Low profile, comfortable, but not ambitious. Safe. Here's what she didn't see. 3 years before that night, I had sold a company I built from nothing. 9 years of work. Quietly. No announcements, no interviews, no headlines. Just a contract signed in a room with people who understood numbers and silence. I didn't celebrate, didn't upgrade my life. Didn't change anything that would draw attention, because attention is expensive, and the kind of money that talks usually ends up answering questions it shouldn't. So I stayed exactly what I looked like. Ordinary. It made life easier, cleaner, predictable, and apparently very useful. Lena and I started seeing each other after that night. Dinners, events, weekends that blurred into something that felt real. She brought me into her world. Investors, boardrooms, conversations that moved fast and expected you to keep up. And every time she introduced me, it sounded the same. This is Daniel. He keeps things simple. Simple. I smiled, played the part, because at the time, it didn't feel like a role. It felt like balance. There was a moment, about 6 weeks before we got married, when a friend pulled me aside. You ever notice how she talks about you? He asked. I shrugged. What about it? She presents you like a detail, not a priority. I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. We got married that spring. Small ceremony, her idea, controlled, efficient. Everything exactly the way she wanted it. I remember standing there, watching her, thinking, I got this right. I didn't realize then I wasn't stepping into a relationship. I was stepping into something she had already planned. The first year of marriage? It was good. I don't say that lightly. We traveled when she had time, which wasn't often. We had routines, Sunday mornings, late dinners when she came home past 8, small conversations that felt normal enough to believe in. Nothing felt wrong, which is exactly why I didn't see it coming. It was a Sunday evening, quiet. She was still at the office. I was at home, sitting at the same kitchen table going through shared documents, insurance, tax files, routine things. The kind of boring responsibility that comes with building a life with someone. I wasn't looking for anything unusual. That part matters. I didn't go searching for answers. I just opened the wrong folder. Archive. That's what it was labeled. Clean, organized, easy to ignore. I clicked it without thinking, scrolled once, and then I saw it. Exit strategy D. I remember staring at the title for a few seconds longer than I needed to, long enough for something in my head to register before I even opened it. I clicked anyway. 12 pages. Structured, clean, precise. The first paragraph read like a business overview. The second, like a timeline. By page 3, I stopped reading. Then I went back to the beginning and read it again. Slower this time. Year 2. Consolidate shared assets. Year 3. Increase company valuation, stabilize external perception. Year 5. Initiate dissolution. Dissolution. Not divorce. Dissolution. Like we were a contract, not a marriage. I kept reading. There were notes, observations, risk assessments. Me, categorized. My financial profile labeled limited. My influence described as non-critical. My presence, stabilizing but replaceable. Replaceable. I sat there for a while after that. Didn't move, didn't react, just processed. And then I turned to page 7. That's where it got interesting. A name. Someone I recognized. A man who had shaken my hand more than once, smiled, made small talk, sat across from us at dinners like he belonged there. Apparently, he did. I closed the laptop, walked into the kitchen, and started cooking. Not because I was hungry, because I needed something that required focus, something simple, controlled, predictable. Water boiling, knife against the board, measured movements, because the alternative was thinking too fast. She came home later that night, same as always, dropped her bag, loosened her heels, told me about her day. I listened, nodded, asked the right questions, played the role perfectly. Because by then, I understood something I couldn't ignore. She didn't choose me despite what I was. She chose me because of it. The quiet, the lack of visibility, the absence of noise. I wasn't a partner. I was a strategy, a clean, low-risk asset that made everything around her look more stable, more grounded, more believable. And the worst part? She wasn't wrong. I had built my life to be invisible. She just never considered what invisible men are capable of when they're finally seen. That night, after she fell asleep, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, running through every page, every word, every implication. There were 100 ways I could have handled it. Confrontation, anger, walking away. But none of them would have changed the outcome, because she wasn't reacting. She was executing. So I made a decision. If she was running a long game, I'd run a longer one. No confrontation, no warning, no mistakes, because the only way to beat a plan like hers was patience. And by the time she realized the board had changed, I wouldn't just be playing the game. I'd be controlling it. The next morning, I made the call I should have made months earlier. He picked up on the second ring. "Daniel," he said, "you don't call early unless something's wrong." "Nothing's wrong," I replied, looking out the window at the city just starting to wake up. "It's about to be very right." There was a pause on the line. "Talk." So I did. Everything. The file, the timeline, the 5-year plan, the prenup she hadn't shown me yet, but I already knew was coming. He didn't interrupt. That's how I knew this was serious. When I finished, he let the silence sit for a moment before speaking. "She documented it?" he asked. 12 pages. Another pause. "That's either very confident," he said slowly, "or very careless." "Both," I answered, "and I want to use that." "What do you need?" I leaned back in my chair. For the first time since that night, everything felt clear. She gave me the timeline, I said. All I have to do is move faster. We started that week. First move, structure. A new entity, clean, forgettable, the kind of name that disappears in paperwork. Northline Holdings. No personality, no attention, exactly what I wanted. Because the more boring something looks, the less people ask questions about it. The second move mattered more. I didn't go after Lena, not directly. I went after the things she relied on, her company's ecosystem, the vendors she complained about over dinner, the partners she trusted just enough to depend on, the weak points she talked about when she thought she was just venting. I listened. I remembered. And then I moved. Small stakes, quiet entries, nothing that would trigger attention. A percentage here, a connection there, layered, indirect, invisible. By the time contracts came up for renewal, I was already in the room, just not as myself. At home, nothing changed. That was the rule. We still had dinner together, still talked about her day, still walked the same streets on Sunday mornings like everything was exactly the same. Because the moment anything felt different, the moment she sensed a shift, the entire plan would collapse. So I gave her nothing. No suspicion, no distance, no reason to look twice. Just consistency. Perfect, predictable consistency. A few months in, the board started forming. Not on paper, in reality. Her suppliers? Connected. Her negotiations? Influenced. Her margins? Dependent on decisions she didn't realize weren't entirely hers anymore. And the best part? She kept telling me everything. Every frustration, every delay, every deal that almost worked. I nodded, listened, refilled her glass, and adjusted the board accordingly. Then came the final piece, the one she thought was her advantage, the man in her plan. I found him through a side channel, investment discussions, private capital, quiet opportunities. He was raising funds, looking for the right backers. He shook my hand, called me a solid guy, didn't ask too many questions. He should have. Because by the time I was done, I wasn't just part of his fund. I was behind it, layers deep, invisible. Time passed. 6 months, then 9, then a year, and with every passing week the structure tightened, connections overlapped, control expanded, and all of it sat quietly beneath the surface of a life that looked exactly the same. There were nights I sat alone in the dark kitchen after she went to bed, not angry, not even bitter, just aware of what this had become, of what she had turned it into, and of what I was choosing to do in return. I didn't hate her. I just stopped believing in her. By the time she placed that prenup in front of me, I wasn't unprepared. I wasn't surprised. I was already in position, and she had no idea. The game she thought she was controlling had already changed. Which brings me back to that Tuesday morning. The envelope, the 11 pages, her voice, calm, certain. Sign it. You have nothing to lose. She was right. I smiled. Exactly. I didn't argue, didn't question a single clause, didn't ask for revisions. I read it once, slowly. Then I signed it, right where she expected me to. Because this was never about stopping her plan. It was about finishing mine. That afternoon, I called my attorney. I need the full file ready, I said. Everything? Everything. There was a pause. You're not countering the prenup? I looked out the window, watching the reflection of the city shift across the glass. No, I said. Not a counter. A revelation. 2 weeks later, we sent it. Not 11 pages. 43. Structured, documented, verified. Every asset, every holding, every connection she had never thought to look for. Northline Holdings, the supplier network, the investment layers, and, most importantly, her company. The call came the next morning, not from Lena, from her lawyer. His tone was careful, measured in a way experienced men only become when something doesn't make sense anymore. "Mr. Hayes," he said, "it appears there are substantial assets previously undisclosed." "Yes," I replied, "there are." A pause. "We would like to revisit the terms of the agreement." I leaned back in my chair. "No." Silence. "I'm satisfied with the terms," I continued, "exactly as they are." Another pause. Longer this time. Because that's when it hits. The moment the math stops working. I didn't change a single word in that prenup. I didn't need to. She wrote it to protect herself from a man who didn't exist. She came home early that day. That's how I knew she understood. No blazer, no phone in her hand, just waiting. At the kitchen table, the same place she had placed the envelope, the same place everything started. "Daniel," she said quietly, "we need to talk." I set my keys down. "Of course." She looked at me differently this time, not confident, not in control, studying me, like she was seeing something she had missed. "How long?" she asked. I didn't pretend not to understand. "Long enough." Her jaw tightened slightly. "The file," she said. I nodded. Silence filled the room, heavy, real. "How much do you have?" she asked finally. Not emotional, not angry, just calculating. I held her gaze. "More than you planned for." She looked away first, walked to the window, took a breath, and for the first time since I met her, she didn't look like a CEO. She looked human. "I underestimated you." I didn't move. "Yes," I said. "You did." Another silence. Different this time, not tension. Finality. "You built all of this," she said slowly, "while living here with me?" "You were planning year 5, I replied. "I was planning the board." That landed. I could see it. The moment everything connected, the vendors, the delays, the deals that didn't go her way, the man she trusted. All of it. "What do you want?" she asked. That question. Simple, but too late. I thought about it for a second, about what I used to want, about what I thought this was, and what it actually became. Then I answered. "Nothing you haven't already offered." She nodded, slowly, not in agreement, in understanding. Picked up her bag, walked to the door, paused for half a second, then left. No shouting, no breakdown, no scene. Just the quiet sound of something ending, exactly the way it was always going to. I stood there for a while after she was gone, the city still moving outside, unchanged, indifferent. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like watching a structure collapse that had never been built on anything real. And by the time the papers were signed, there was nothing left to fight over. Because the outcome? It had already been decided, long before she ever placed that envelope in front of me. The papers were signed on a Tuesday morning. No arguments, no delays, no second chances, just signatures. and silence. I moved out that same week. 2 suitcases, a few boxes, nothing dramatic. I took what was mine and left everything else exactly where she put it. Clean, efficient. She would have appreciated that if it wasn't happening to her. The new place was smaller, higher floor, better view, city lights stretching across the horizon like nothing had changed. But everything had. The first night there, I stood by the window with a glass of wine in my hand. No noise, no tension, no performance. Just quiet. I wasn't happy. That's the part people don't expect. I wasn't relieved. I wasn't proud. I was still. Like a room after something loud finally stops and you realize how much space there actually is. A few weeks later, things started shifting on her side. Not because I made them, because I stopped holding them together. Investors started asking questions, small ones at first, then sharper ones, about structure, about ownership, about decisions that didn't seem as stable as before. The vendor contracts? Unpredictable. The deals she thought she controlled? Less reliable. The foundation she built everything on wasn't as solid as she believed. I didn't interfere, didn't call anyone, didn't force anything. I didn't have to, because the moment I stepped back, everything she had quietly leaned on started to move. The man from her plan, he stepped away within a month. Officially, new opportunities. Unofficially, he understood the position he was in and chose distance over risk. Smart decision. Then came the call I didn't expect. Her board. They wanted stability, clarity, control, and apparently they believed I could provide it. I read the offer twice. Advisory role, influence, access, a seat at the table. I called my attorney. "They're offering me a position," I said. "What are you thinking?" he asked. I looked out at the city. Same skyline, different perspective. "I'm not taking a seat," I said. A pause. "Then what are you taking?" I answered without hesitation. The head of the table. A week later, it was official. No announcement that mattered, no spotlight, just a quiet shift in control. The kind most people don't notice until it's already done. Sunday morning, coffee, same habit as always, different life. A friend called me later that day. "You good?" he asked. Simple question. I thought about it for a second, about everything that happened, what I lost, what I learned, what I thought I had, and what was actually real. "Yeah," I said, "I'm good." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. People think revenge is loud, that it explodes, that it demands to be seen. They're wrong. The real kind is quiet, patient, precise. And by the time anyone realizes what happened, it's already over. I didn't lose her. I lost the version of her I believed in. And maybe that's worse. Or maybe it's exactly what needed to happen. She said I had nothing to lose. She was right, because by the time she said it, I had already let her go.